I should have known something was wrong the moment she walked into my lab. Nobody just wanders into a classified xenobiology research facility at 3 in the morning, especially not someone who looked like they'd stepped out of a dream. But I was exhausted, running on my 4th cup of coffee and 0 sleep, so when Dr. Lena Voss introduced herself as the new research assistant, I just nodded and went back to my microscope. That was 6 months ago. 6 months before everything I thought I knew about the war, about the Kael'rians, about myself, turned inside out. My name is Daniel Cross, and I'm a xenobiologist working for the Terran Defense Initiative, or at least I was. Now I'm not sure what I am anymore. A traitor maybe, a fool definitely, but also somehow the only person standing between 2 civilizations and total annihilation. Let me start at the beginning. The war with the Kael'rians had been going on for 3 years when Lena arrived. 3 years of skirmishes at the edge of our solar system, of ships destroyed and lives lost, of both sides claiming the other started it. The Kael'rians were enigmatic, their biology so different from ours that we could barely communicate. They existed partially in quantum states, flickering between dimensions in ways that made them nearly impossible to target. Our weapons passed through them like smoke. Their weapons unmade matter at the molecular level. It was a stalemate that was slowly bleeding both sides dry. My job was to figure out how they worked, to find a weakness, a vulnerability, something we could exploit. The brass thought if we could understand their biology, we could develop a weapon that would actually stick. They'd given me samples, fragments of Kael'rian tissue recovered from destroyed ships, and I'd been studying them obsessively for 2 years, getting nowhere. That's why they sent Lena, I thought. Fresh eyes on an impossible problem. She had credentials from universities I'd barely heard of, recommendations from scientists I respected, and a smile that made me forget whatever I was saying mid-sentence. She was brilliant too. Within a week she'd reorganized my entire filing system, caught 3 errors in my calculations, and proposed a new theoretical framework for understanding Kael'rian quantum biology that actually made sense. We started working late nights together, then later nights. The lab became our world, just the 2 of us and the mysteries we were trying to unravel. She'd bring coffee at midnight, her fingers brushing mine as she handed me the cup. We'd debate theories until dawn, our voices getting softer as exhaustion made everything feel more intimate. Sometimes I'd look up and catch her watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read, something between curiosity and sadness. I told myself it was professional, colleagues working closely on an important project, but the truth was, I was falling for her, hard and fast and completely inappropriately, given that we were literally trying to develop a weapon to kill her people. Except I didn't know that part yet. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday. We'd been running simulations on Kael'rian cellular resonance patterns when Lena suddenly grabbed my arm, her nails digging in hard enough to hurt. "Daniel, look at this. The harmonic frequency, it's not random. It's structured like a language." I leaned over her shoulder, close enough to smell her perfume, something floral and strange that I'd never been able to place. The data streams cascading across her screen did show patterns, repeating sequences that resolved into what could almost be syntax. "If we could decode this," I said slowly, "we could communicate with them. Actually communicate, not just throw translation algorithms at quantum static and hope something sticks." She turned her head, and suddenly our faces were inches apart. Her eyes were the color of storm clouds, gray and silver and full of lightning. For a heartbeat, I thought she was going to kiss me. Instead, she pulled away, her expression troubled. "What if they don't want to communicate?" she asked quietly. "What if some wars can't be solved with words?" "Then we find another way," I said. "But we have to try, don't we?" She didn't answer, just turned back to the screen, her fingers flying over the keyboard with desperate speed. We worked for 72 hours straight after that, surviving on stimulants and stubborn determination. The language began to emerge from the noise, alien but comprehensible, concepts that didn't translate cleanly into human thought but that we could approximate. Home, survival, fear, defense, and one word that kept repeating over and over: betrayal. "They think we betrayed them," Lena said, her voice hollow. "That's what started the war. They believed we had an agreement and we violated it." "What agreement? We'd never even met them before the first attack." She was quiet for a long time. Then, so softly, I almost didn't hear. "Hadn't we?" I should have pressed her on that, should have asked what she meant, but I was too focused on the implications, on the possibility that this whole war was based on a misunderstanding. If we could just explain, if we could show them we never meant to break whatever agreement they thought existed, maybe we could end this. I wrote up my findings and submitted them to command that night. Lena tried to stop me. Daniel, wait. You don't understand the full picture yet. If you send this now, people are dying out there every day, I interrupted. If there's even a chance this could stop it, I have to try. Her face crumpled just for a second. Then she composed herself, that professional mask sliding back into place. You're right, of course. I want to make sure we get it right. She kissed me then, desperate and fierce, her hands fisting in my shirt like she was trying to hold onto something slipping away. I kissed her back, too tired and too overwhelmed to think about protocols or professionalism or anything, except the fact that this brilliant, beautiful woman was in my arms, and the war might finally be ending. When we broke apart, she was crying, silent tears tracking down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she whispered, for everything. I hope you can understand. Then she was gone, practically running out of the lab. I called after her, confused and concerned, but she didn't look back. I didn't see her again for 3 days. When she finally returned, she looked like she hadn't slept, her eyes red-rimmed and haunted. She wouldn't meet my gaze as she worked, wouldn't respond to my attempts at conversation. Something had changed, something fundamental, and I didn't understand what. Command's response to my report came that afternoon. They wanted me to present my findings in person at Fleet Headquarters. A shuttle would arrive tomorrow morning. This was it, the moment that could change everything. I should have been excited. Instead, I felt sick with dread. That night I stayed late in the lab, going over the data one more time, making sure I hadn't missed anything, that my conclusions were sound. The facility was empty, just me and the hum of equipment. Or so I thought. The lights cut out without warning. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red. And in that crimson glow, I saw her. Lena, standing in the doorway, but not Lena. Her form flickered, shifting between solid and translucent, between human and something else entirely. Something that existed in multiple states simultaneously, quantum probability made flesh. Kaelrian. I'm sorry you had to see this, she said, and her voice was layered harmonics that hurt to hear. I wanted to tell you so many times, but the mission... Mission. The word tasted like ash. You're a spy. You've been spying on us this whole time. Yes. No denial, no justification. Just that simple, terrible affirmation. I should have hit the alarm. Should have called security, locked down the lab, done any of the 1,000 things I'd been trained to do in the event of enemy infiltration. Instead, I just stood there feeling everything I thought I knew crumbling to dust. The betrayal, I said slowly. In the translations. That was about first contact, wasn't it? We met your people before the war. We made some kind of agreement. And then we broke it. She flickered, her form stabilizing back into the Lena I knew, or thought I knew. Your government made a deal with my people 50 years ago. We would share our quantum technology in exchange for safe passage through your system. For decades it worked. We traveled through, you learned from us, everyone benefited. Then your military decided they wanted our technology for themselves, wanted to weaponize it. They attacked one of our science vessels, killed everyone aboard, and tried to steal the quantum drives. We would never. I've seen the classified files, Daniel. I've spent 6 months swimming through your databases. It's all there, buried under 70 layers of security clearance. Your government started this war, then convinced your people you were the victims, that we attacked first unprovoked. I wanted to call her a liar, wanted to believe my own people, my own government, but something in her eyes, some terrible sincerity made me hesitate. Why tell me this, I asked. Why reveal yourself now? Because tomorrow you're going to Fleet Headquarters to present research that will end the war, research that I helped you develop, research that contains the exact harmonic frequencies needed to destabilize Kaelrian quantum matrices on a massive scale. You've built the weapon they've been dreaming of, Daniel, the one that can actually kill us, all of us. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. No, that's not... I was trying to help, to create communication, not... I know. Her voice was gentle, heartbreaking. That's why I chose you. Because you're good, Daniel. Because you genuinely want peace. That's what made you the perfect weapon. She moved closer and I flinched back. Pain flashed across her face. I was supposed to steal your research and disappear, she continued. That was the mission. Infiltrate, gather intelligence, prevent you from developing any technology that could harm us and extract before you realized what I was. Simple. Clean. Except what? Except I fell in love with you. The words hung in the air between us, impossible and true. I could see it in her eyes, in the way her form flickered with distress, in the tremor in her voice. She meant it. This enemy spy who'd infiltrated my life and manipulated me into building a genocide machine somehow impossibly loved me. And the worst part was I still loved her too. The mission parameters were clear, she said, and now she was crying again. Those strange quantum tears that existed in multiple states until they hit the ground. I was supposed to stay detached, professional, but you were so passionate about your work, so determined to find a peaceful solution. You saw my people as a puzzle to solve, not monsters to destroy. And when you looked at me, you saw Lena. Just Lena. Not a tool or an asset or a means to an end. Just me. Who are you really? I asked. Is Lena even your name? In your language, approximately. My true name exists in quantum harmonics you can't pronounce. But Lena is real enough. The person you came to know, the one who loves terrible coffee and debates scientific theory at 3 in the morning and laughs at your awful jokes, that's real. She's me, just not all of me. She held out her hand, and I watched it flicker between states. Human flesh, quantum probability, something in between. I need to stop you from delivering that research, she said. That's still my mission, but I can't do it the easy way anymore. I can't just make you disappear or destroy the data. Because that would hurt you, and I've already hurt you enough. So what? You're asking my permission to commit treason. I'm asking you to look at the truth. Really look. Not at what your government has told you, but at what the evidence shows. And then decide what kind of man you want to be. The kind who follows orders without question, or the kind who does what's right even when it's hard. She pulled up a holographic display, flooding the lab with images and documents. Classified files she should never have been able to access. I recognized some of the headers. They were so far above my clearance level, I shouldn't have even known they existed. But there they were. Proof of first contact, 50 years buried. The treaty my government had signed with the Kaelrians. The attack on the science vessel, carefully edited to look like self-defense in the official records, but shown in brutal honesty in the raw footage. The decision to claim victimhood, to paint the Kaelrians as aggressors while preparing for a war of conquest, disguised as defense. My people had started this. We were the villains of this story. I felt sick. How many? I asked. How many people know the truth? In your government? Maybe 20. Everyone else genuinely believes the official story, including the soldiers dying to perpetuate a lie. I sank into a chair, my legs refusing to support me anymore. Everything I'd been working toward, every sacrifice I'd made, had been in service of a war we started. We were the aggressors, we were the betrayers, and I'd just developed the perfect weapon to complete our genocide. What happens if I don't deliver the research? I asked. The war continues, more death on both sides. My people are losing, Daniel. Your technology is advancing faster than we can adapt. In another year, maybe 2, you'll develop this weapon anyway. Someone else will make the connections I helped you make, and then my entire species will cease to exist. And if I do deliver it, my people die faster, but at least your conscience stays clean. You were just following orders, doing your job. You didn't know. Except now I did know. That was the point. She knelt in front of me, her hands on my knees, her face level with mine. Up close I could see the way she flickered, could see both versions of her simultaneously. Human and Kaelrian, Lena and whoever she really was, the woman I loved and the enemy who'd deceived me. I won't force you to choose, she said. I could. I have the ability to destroy the research, to make you forget we ever had this conversation. My people have technology for that, but I want you to choose freely, because that's what love is, isn't it? Trusting someone enough to give them the power to destroy you and believing they won't use it. You've already destroyed me, I said and meant it. My world had ended the moment she flickered into her true form. Then we're even. We sat there in silence for a long time. the red emergency lights casting everything in shades of blood. I thought about my government's lies, about the Kelrian families destroyed in a war they didn't start, about the soldiers on both sides dying for someone else's ambition. I thought about duty and honor and what either of those words meant when the cause wasn't just. And I thought about Lena, who'd been sent to manipulate me but had fallen in love instead, who could have disappeared with the research and left me ignorant, but who'd chosen to give me the truth instead, who was trusting me with the survival of her entire species. If I don't deliver the research, I said slowly, they'll send someone else. Like you said, they'll figure it out eventually. Probably. And if I destroy it, if I claim the breakthrough was a dead end, that buys you time but doesn't end the war. True. But if I deliver modified research, if I give them something that looks right but doesn't work quite the way they expect, something that opens a communication channel instead of a killing field, she went very still. That's incredibly dangerous. If they discover what you've done, then I'm a traitor, and I'll spend the rest of my life in prison. I know. I met her eyes, those impossible eyes that were every color and no color simultaneously. But maybe that's what I should be. If my people are willing to commit genocide, maybe I should be their traitor. Daniel, help me, I said. Show me how to modify the harmonic frequencies. Teach me enough about your biology that I can make this look convincing while actually building something that could end this war for real. Not through destruction, but through understanding. For you're asking me to help you commit treason. I'm asking you to help me do the right thing. There's a difference. She studied me for a long moment, and I could see the war playing out behind her eyes. Duty versus desire, mission versus morality. I wondered if she felt the same vertigo I did, the same sense of the ground disappearing beneath her feet. Then she smiled, sad and beautiful, and utterly exhausted. I was really hoping you'd say that, she whispered. We worked through the night, just like we had so many times before. But this time we weren't trying to build a weapon. We were trying to build a bridge. Lena taught me things about Kelrian biology that weren't in any of our databases, showed me the elegant complexity of their quantum-based consciousness. In return, I showed her the best of human creativity, our capacity for change and growth and choosing something better than what we'd been given. The modified research was subtle. To anyone not intimately familiar with both human and Kelrian biology, it would look exactly like what I'd promised, a harmonic frequency that could destabilize Kelrian quantum matrices. But in reality, it was a communication protocol, one that would force both sides to actually hear each other instead of just throwing weapons into the void. It would work. Probably. Maybe. We had to believe it would work. Dawn came too quickly. The shuttle would arrive in 3 hours. I had to make a decision about what to do with Lena, with this enemy spy who'd infiltrated my life and my heart. You should go, I said. Before they get here. I'll tell them you got sick, went home. That'll give you time to extract, get back to your people, and leave you to face this alone? You've already done enough. More than enough. She took my hand, her fingers solid and real despite the way she flickered. I'm not leaving you, Daniel. Not now. Not after everything. They'll capture you, imprison you, probably dissect you to figure out how you managed to pass as human for so long. I know. But someone needs to be there when you present the research. Someone who can verify that it's real, that it's based on genuine Kelrian biology. And besides, her smile was crooked, painful, I want to see their faces when they realize they've been negotiating with a Kelrian for the past 6 months. Lena. My real name is Zayla, she said. Zayla Kai Thren. I want you to know that. The real me. Zayla, I tested the sounds, felt how they resonated in my chest. It suits you better than Lena. Does it? I've been Lena for so long, I'm not sure I remember how to be anyone else. The shuttle arrived precisely on time. Military efficiency. We boarded together, Lena still wearing her human form, still playing the role of research assistant. The pilot barely glanced at us, just confirmed our identities, and lifted off. Fleet headquarters loomed above us, a massive orbital station bristling with weapons, home to the military leadership that had lied us into war, home to people who would absolutely execute us both if they knew what we'd done. I thought about backing out, about coming clean, telling them everything, accepting whatever punishment I deserved. But then I looked at Lena, at Zayla, and thought about her people dying for a war they didn't start. Thought about human soldiers dying because they didn't know the truth. Someone had to stop it, even if it meant becoming a traitor. The presentation hall was intimidating, designed to be. High ceilings, harsh lighting, dozens of military officers arranged in judgment. Fleet Admiral Chen sat at the center, her expression carved from ice and discipline. She'd sent more ships into battle than I could count, had built her reputation on being uncompromising in defense of humanity. She scared the hell out of me. "Dr. Cross," she said, her voice carrying across the hall, "I'm told you've made a significant breakthrough in our understanding of Caelrian biology, one that could change the course of the war." "Yes, Admiral. With my assistant, Dr. Voss, we've decoded the harmonic structure underlying Caelrian quantum matrices. We believe we can generate a resonance frequency that would disrupt their ability to phase between dimensions." That got their attention. Officers leaning forward, eyes gleaming with predatory interest. This was what they'd been waiting for, the weapon that would finally let them win. I felt Lena tense beside me, felt her preparing for what came next. "The application is quite specific," I continued. "The frequency would need to be broadcast at specific intervals, maintained for several hours to take full effect. But once established, it would force any Caelrian within range into a stable quantum state, making them vulnerable." "Targetable," Chen said with satisfaction. "Finally, something we can actually hit." "Not exactly, Admiral. The frequency doesn't just stabilize them. It enables direct quantum entanglement between human and Caelrian neural structures. In other words, it's a communication protocol, one that works at the level of consciousness itself." The hall went silent. I watched understanding dawn on their faces, watched satisfaction curdle into confusion. "You're saying this weapon is a translator?" one of the junior officers asked incredulously. "I'm saying there is no weapon. There never was. This was always about communication, about forcing us to actually understand each other instead of killing based on incomplete information." Chen stood, her face flushing with anger. "You were ordered to develop a tactical advantage, Doctor, not philosophy. With respect, Admiral, the tactical advantage is ending this war, which we can't do by killing everyone who disagrees with us. Guards, arrest—" "She's Caelrian." Lena's voice cut through the chaos, clear and calm. She stood, and as every weapon in the room turned toward her, she stopped pretending. Her form flickered, resolving into something beautiful and terrible and utterly alien. Quantum probability made flesh, existing in multiple states simultaneously. The guards opened fire. Bullets and energy weapons passed through her flickering form, hitting nothing but air and possibility. "My name is Zayla Kai Thren," she said, her voice layered with harmonics that made everyone flinch. "I am a reconnaissance operative for the Caelrian Collective. I was sent to infiltrate Dr. Cross's research and prevent him from developing any technology that could harm my people. I have had access to your classified systems for 6 months. I have seen the truth about how this war started." She pulled up holographic displays, flooding the hall with the same evidence she'd shown me. First contact, the treaty, the attack. 50 years of lies laid bare. "You started this war," she said simply. "You broke faith with a peaceful species because you wanted to steal our technology. Every death since then, human and Caelrian, is built on that foundation of betrayal." The room erupted. Denials, accusations, calls for her immediate destruction. But Chen held up a hand, her expression unreadable. "How do we know any of this is real?" she asked. "This could all be fabricated, propaganda designed to weaken our resolve." "You could verify it," I said. "Every piece of evidence has a source, file numbers, dates, classification codes. You have people with clearance high enough to access the original documents. All I'm asking is that you look, really look. And in the meantime, we just trust that this enemy operative isn't feeding us lies?" "You trust that I'm not a traitor," I said, "that I haven't spent 6 months falling in love with the enemy and deciding their lives matter as much as ours." The honesty seemed to shock them more than anything else I'd said. Chen stared at me like I was a specimen under glass, something fascinating and disturbing. "You're admitting to treason," she said slowly. "I'm admitting to choosing humanity over nationalism, to believing that ending a war is more important than winning it. If that's treason, then yes, I'm a traitor." Lena, Zayla, moved closer, her flickering form solidifying until she stood beside me in something approximating human shape. Our hands found each other, fingers interlacing. "The research we've developed will work," she said. "It will force quantum entanglement between our species, enable communication at a fundamental level. You'll be able to hear our thoughts, our emotions, our truth, and we'll hear yours. No more lies, no more misunderstandings. Just truth, raw and undeniable." "And you think that will end the war?" Chen asked. "I think it gives us a chance," I said. "Which is more than we have now." The silence that followed was deafening. I could see the calculations happening behind Chen's eyes, the weighing of risks and rewards. She was a soldier, trained to think in terms of victory and defeat. But she was also smart enough to recognize a stalemate when she saw one. "Dr. Cross will be placed under arrest pending investigation," she said finally. "The Caelrian operative will be detained for questioning. As for this research, it will be reviewed by independent analysts to verify its claims. If it checks out, if there's any chance it could end this war without further bloodshed, we'll consider deploying it. But if this is deception, if you've betrayed humanity for personal reasons, the consequences will be severe." "I understand, Admiral." Guards moved to flank us. Zayla let her form solidify fully, allowing them to place quantum-dampening restraints on her wrists. She winced as they activated, forcing her into a single stable state, trapped in one quantum possibility, unable to flicker between dimensions. For a being who existed in superposition, it must have been like being buried alive. But she met my eyes and smiled, genuine despite the pain. "Worth it," she mouthed. They separated us immediately. I was taken to a holding cell designed for human prisoners, all concrete and steel and harsh lights. Zayla was taken somewhere else, somewhere equipped to hold a being who existed partially outside normal space-time. I tried not to think about what they might be doing to her, what tests and interrogations she was enduring. I had to believe the research would speak for itself. That someone with authority would actually look at the evidence, would verify the truth of what we'd shown them. That humanity was capable of choosing peace over pride. Hours passed, then days. I lost track of time in the featureless cell, marked only by the meals that arrived at irregular intervals. No one would tell me what was happening with the investigation, with Zayla, with anything. I was in limbo, Schrödinger's traitor, simultaneously guilty and innocent, until someone bothered to collapse the waveform. Finally, Admiral Chen came to see me. She looked older than I remembered, exhaustion carving lines in her face. She sat across from me in the interrogation room, silent for a long moment before speaking. "We verified your evidence," she said. "Every piece of it. You were right. We started this war. 50 years of lies and classified documents and carefully maintained fiction, but you were right. Relief and horror warred in my chest. So the war will end? It's not that simple. Admitting we were wrong means admitting to 3 years of unnecessary death, means trials, recriminations, the collapse of the current military leadership, possibly the government itself. The political fallout would be catastrophic. More catastrophic than continuing a genocide? To the people making these decisions? Potentially, yes. She leaned back, studying me. But your research is real. We had our best analysts examine it. The communication protocol works exactly as you described. We could establish direct consciousness-to-consciousness contact with the Caelrians, force both sides to truly understand each other. Then do it. It's been deployed 3 days ago. We broadcast the harmonic frequency across every battlefield simultaneously. And you know what happened? I held my breath. The fighting stopped, just stopped. Human and Caelrian forces suddenly able to hear each other's thoughts, to feel each other's fear and pain and desperate desire to survive. Turns out it's hard to kill someone when you can feel them dying inside your own mind. Tears I'd been holding back for days finally broke free. It worked. It worked. Both sides have agreed to ceasefire. Negotiations are beginning tomorrow. Real negotiations with both species able to verify honesty through quantum entanglement. Your Dr. Voss, or Zayla, or whatever her name is, she's been instrumental in facilitating communication. Turns out having someone who exists in both states, human enough to understand us and Caelrian enough to translate nuance, is incredibly valuable. Is she all right? The restraints? The detention? She's fine. Better than fine. She's currently in a diplomatic suite helping us prepare for first contact. Again, Chen's smile was wry. Apparently we're getting a do-over on the whole meeting an alien species thing, trying to get it right this time. And me? That's complicated. You did commit treason. You knowingly collaborated with an enemy operative, falsified research, and delivered modified intelligence to Fleet Command. By every legal standard, you should spend the rest of your life in prison. My heart sank. However, Chen continued, you also ended a war, saved countless lives on both sides, exposed a government conspiracy that was pushing us toward genocide. The optics of prosecuting the man who brought us peace are terrible. So here's what's going to happen. She pulled out a data pad, sliding it across the table. You're being officially reassigned, Diplomatic Corps, Xenocultural Liaison. Your job will be helping humans and Kelrians learn to coexist, using your unique insight into both species. It's not freedom exactly. You'll be monitored, restrictions on your movements, regular psychological evaluations to ensure you haven't been compromised by ongoing contact with Kelrian operatives, but it's not prison. I stared at the contract, hardly daring to believe it. Why? I asked. Why give me this chance? Because I've spent 3 years sending people to die for a lie, Chen said, her voice rough with something that might have been grief. Because I looked at the evidence and realized I was complicit in atrocity. Because maybe, just maybe, we need people like you. People who are willing to commit treason for the right reasons. People who choose conscience over country when country is wrong. She stood, moving toward the door. Your Kelrian friend is waiting for you in processing. Try not to make me regret this, Dr. Cross. Admiral? Thank you. She paused, glancing back. Don't thank me. Just don't screw it up. We're trying to build something new here. A real alliance between species based on honesty and mutual respect. It's fragile. If you've misjudged, if this peace falls apart, the next war will be worse than anything we've seen. It won't fall apart. I hope you're right. They processed my release quickly after that, returning my personal effects and providing new credentials, identifying me as a diplomatic liaison. I tried to process what had happened, the sheer impossibility of going from traitor to diplomat in the space of one conversation. But mostly I just wanted to see Zayla. She was waiting in a lounge designed for cross-species interaction, sitting in a chair designed to accommodate her flickering form. She looked up as I entered, and her face broke into a smile that was pure Lena, human and warm and utterly genuine. Daniel. Zayla. We stood there awkwardly for a moment, suddenly unsure. We'd risked everything for each other, had bet 2 civilizations on our ability to build something better, but we'd also barely known each other outside of crisis and deception. Then she laughed, that familiar sound that had gotten me through countless late nights in the lab, and the awkwardness shattered. We really did it, she said. We actually ended the war. We started something, I corrected. Peace is just the beginning. Now comes the hard part, actually building trust, repairing damage, teaching 2 species to see each other as people instead of threats. Sounds like job security. Sounds exhausting. She moved closer, her form flickering between states. Half human, half Kelrian, half Lena, and half Zayla. All of her, finally, without pretense or deception. I should tell you, she said, my people want me to stay here, as a permanent liaison helping facilitate integration, which means I'll be on Earth, working with human diplomats and scientists, probably alongside you quite a bit. That's good. We work well together. We do. Although there's something else you should know. She hesitated, vulnerability flickering across her features. Kelrians bond through quantum entanglement. When 2 of our kind become close, we share quantum states, our consciousness overlapping in ways that are difficult to describe. It's deeper than human romance, more fundamental. And when I used the communication protocol with you, when we shared that moment of forced entanglement back in the lab, something happened. What kind of something? We bonded. Not completely. The exposure was too brief for that. But enough that I can feel you sometimes, your emotions bleeding through dimensional barriers. And you can probably feel me too if you pay attention. A presence in the back of your mind that shouldn't be there. I thought about the dreams I'd been having, the sense of not being alone even in solitary confinement, the way I'd known somehow that she was all right, even when no one would tell me anything. I thought that was just stress, I said. It's us. Quantum entanglement at the consciousness level. It will fade eventually if we don't reinforce it, but if we choose to strengthen the bond, If we spend time together and deliberately entangle our quantum states, it could become permanent. We would be linked for life, able to share thoughts and emotions across any distance. That's terrifying. I know. And incredibly intimate. Yes. And you're telling me this because? She met my eyes, human and alien, familiar and strange. Because I want you to choose freely. No more deception, no more manipulation. If we're going to do this, if we're going to build something real between us, it has to be based on complete honesty. You deserve to know what you're getting into. I thought about what she was offering. A bond that transcended species, that would let us share consciousness across the vast distances of space. Never truly alone, never truly separate. For a human raised on concepts of individual autonomy, it should have been horrifying. Instead, it felt like coming home. I choose you, I said. All of you. Human and Kelrian, Lena and Zayla, spy and scientist and everything in between. I choose this bond, this risk, this impossible thing we're trying to build. She flickered, her quantum states resolving into something that was neither fully human nor fully Kelrian, but somehow both. And when she kissed me, I felt it not just in my body but in my mind, our consciousness overlapping in ways that made individual identity blur and blend. This was what the communication protocol had been trying to create, not just understanding between enemies, but genuine connection, the kind that made it impossible to see each other as other, as alien, as less than fully real. We pulled apart, breathless and laughing and terrified and exhilarated all at once. So what now? I asked. We've ended one war and started a peace. Where do we even begin? With the truth, she said. We tell both our peoples everything. About the lies that started the war, about the bridge we've built, about what's possible when we choose connection over fear. The next weeks were chaos. Organized diplomatic chaos, but chaos nonetheless. The revelation that the war had been started by human aggression sent shockwaves through the political establishment. 3 admirals were court-martialed. 2 senators resigned. The Secretary of Defense was impeached. It was messy and painful and absolutely necessary. On the Kelrian side, there were similar upheavals. Hardliners who wanted revenge for 3 years of death, progressives who saw an opportunity for genuine alliance, and everyone in between trying to navigate uncharted territory. Zayla and I became the faces of reconciliation. The human scientist and the Kelrian spy who'd fallen in love across enemy lines and chose to build a bridge instead of a weapon. It was uncomfortable, being reduced to symbols, but we understood the necessity. People needed hope, needed to see that coexistence was possible. We gave joint presentations about the communication protocol, demonstrating how quantum entanglement could enable genuine understanding between species. We trained other diplomats in the techniques we'd developed, teaching them how to strengthen the bonds rather than letting them fade. We mediated disputes, translated cultural misunderstandings, and slowly, painfully, helped 2 civilizations learn to see each other as people. The hardest part was facing the families, human soldiers who'd lost loved ones in battles that should never have happened, Kelrian civilians whose homes had been destroyed by weapons built on lies. We couldn't give them back what they'd lost, couldn't undo the damage. All we could do was witness their pain and promise to do better. 6 months after the ceasefire, the first joint colony was established. New Harmony, they called it, built on a neutral moon halfway between Earth and the Kelrian homeworld. A place where both species could live together, raise children together, build a future that belonged to neither side exclusively, but to both. Zayla and I were among the first residents. We had a small apartment that accommodated both human and Kelrian needs, with spaces designed for her to flicker freely, and spaces solid enough for me to feel grounded. We worked in the new Xenocultural Institute, continuing to develop better methods for cross-species communication and understanding. And slowly, carefully, we built a life together. The quantum bond between us had strengthened over the months, until I could feel her presence constantly, a warm weight in the back of my mind. Sometimes she'd send me amusement when I was struggling with particularly dense bureaucratic documents. Sometimes I'd send her comfort when memories of the war hit her unexpectedly hard. We were learning to be 2 people and 1 consciousness simultaneously, to maintain our individual selves while sharing everything. It wasn't always easy. There were moments when the intimacy felt overwhelming, when I desperately wanted privacy that was no longer possible. Moments when cultural differences created friction we had to work through. Moments when the weight of what we'd done, the responsibility we'd taken on, felt crushing. But there were also moments of perfect harmony. Watching dual sunrises from our balcony, her form flickering in and out of phase with the light. Working side by side on new research, our thoughts flowing together in ways that accelerated both our understanding. Making love in ways that transcended physical bodies, our consciousness merging in quantum superposition until we couldn't tell where one of us ended and the other began. 1 year after the war ended, the formal treaty was signed. Not just a ceasefire, but a genuine alliance. Trade agreements, cultural exchanges, joint scientific initiatives. The beginning of something unprecedented in galactic history, two species choosing integration over isolation. The signing ceremony was held on New Harmony, with representatives from both civilizations present. Admiral Chen was there, looking proud and tired, and maybe a little wistful. Drev Kai Thren, Zayla's superior officer who'd initially given her the spy mission, stood beside her. They'd become unlikely friends during the peace negotiations, bonding over their shared guilt about the war they'd prosecuted. Zayla and I watched from the sidelines, content to let others take the spotlight for once. We'd done our part. Now it was time to let the peace we'd built stand on its own. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked quietly. "Everything you gave up? Your mission? Your original purpose?" She flickered thoughtfully, considering. "I gave up being a spy, but I gained being fully myself. Turns out I was never meant to live in shadows and deception. I was meant for this." She gestured at the ceremony, at the mingling crowds of human and Kelrian. Building bridges instead of gathering intelligence. And falling in love with the enemy? Especially that. She took my hand, our fingers interlacing in a gesture that had become as natural as breathing. "Although you're not the enemy anymore. You're just Daniel. Stubborn, idealistic, occasionally infuriating Daniel who chose to commit treason for peace. And you're just Zayla, brilliant, complicated, occasionally terrifying Zayla, who chose to fall in love instead of completing her mission. We're quite a pair. The worst spies in galactic history. The best peacemakers, though." We watched the treaty signing, feeling the weight of history shifting around us. This was what we'd risked everything for. Not just an end to violence, but the beginning of genuine understanding. A future where human and Kelrian children would grow up together, learning each other's languages and customs and ways of seeing the universe. It wouldn't be perfect. There would be setbacks, conflicts, moments when old prejudices resurfaced. Building trust between species that had been at war took generations, not months. But it was possible. We were living proof. That night, after the ceremonies and celebrations had ended, Zayla and I stood on our balcony watching ships come and go from the orbital stations, human vessels and Kelrian vessels, moving in harmony rather than conflict. The physical manifestation of what we'd created. "I've been thinking," Zayla said, her form flickering in the starlight, "about the quantum bond, about what it means for our future." "What about it?" "Kelrian bonds can extend to offspring. If we ever chose to have children, they would inherit aspects of our connection, be able to communicate in ways that transcend species barriers from birth." I turned to look at her, seeing the hope and fear mingled in her expression. "Is that even possible? Human Kelrian hybrids?" It wasn't before. Our biologies were too different. But the quantum entanglement we share, it creates bridges at the cellular level. Genetic compatibility where none existed before. We could have children, Daniel, if we wanted to. The idea was staggering. A child who was both human and Kelrian, who could exist in quantum superposition and solid matter simultaneously, who would be living proof that the barriers between our species were negotiable, not absolute. "That's terrifying," I said. "I know." "And beautiful." "Yes." "And you're telling me this because?" She smiled, echoing that conversation from a year ago. "Because I want you to choose freely. No pressure, no expectations. But I wanted you to know it's possible, that we could build a family, if that's something you want." I pulled her close, feeling her flicker against me. Quantum probability and solid flesh somehow occupying the same space. Our child would be like that, I realized. Impossible and real, bridging worlds that were never meant to connect. Not yet, I said. We've barely figured out how to be partners. Let's master that before we add a child to the chaos. But someday, yes, I'd like that. Someday, she agreed, and I felt her relief and joy through our bond, warm and bright and utterly genuine. We stood there for a long time, watching the stars, feeling the weight of what we'd built and the lightness of what we'd become. Two people who'd started as enemies and become something more. Not quite human, not quite Caelrian, but something new. Something that could only exist because we'd chosen each other over duty, over species, over everything we'd been told we should be. The war was over. The peace was beginning. And we had the rest of our lives to figure out what came next. Years passed. The peace held, growing stronger as more joint colonies were established, as trade increased, as cultural exchange became commonplace. Zayla and I continued our work at the Xenocultural Institute, training new generations of diplomats in the arts of cross-species understanding. And eventually, when the time felt right, we had a child. Arya, we named her. Arya Kai Cross, carrying both our surnames in the Caelrian style. She was beautiful and impossible, flickering between quantum states even in the womb, her consciousness already touching mine and Zayla's through the bond we shared. When she was born, she came into the world with her eyes open, already aware in ways that human infants weren't, already existing in superposition between possibilities. Raising her was an adventure. She could phase through walls when she was upset, could exist in multiple locations simultaneously when she wanted to play, could feel the emotions of everyone around her through the quantum entanglement she'd inherited. We had to invent entirely new parenting strategies for a child who existed partially outside normal space-time. But watching her grow, watching her navigate both human and Caelrian cultures with equal ease, I knew we'd made the right choice. She was the future we'd fought for. Living proof that the barriers between species were illusions, that connection was always possible if we chose to reach across the divide. On her 5th birthday, we took her to Earth to meet her human grandparents. They'd struggled with my choices at first, had been terrified when they learned I'd bonded with a Caelrian. But one look at Arya, at their granddaughter, who could exist in two states simultaneously, and they melted. "She's beautiful," my mother said, tears streaming down her face as Arya flickered in and out of phase on her lap. "Absolutely beautiful." "She's the future," I said. "Everything we fought for, everything we risked, it was for children like her, who won't have to choose between species or cultures or ways of being, who can be all of it simultaneously." On her 10th birthday, we took her to the Caelrian homeworld to meet Zayla's family. The reception there was more complicated. Some of Zayla's relatives still saw me as the enemy, still couldn't forgive the war, even though it had been started by lies. But Arya's ability to share quantum states with them, to let them feel her genuine love and excitement, slowly broke down those barriers. By the end of the visit, even the most hardline traditionalist had admitted that maybe, just maybe, this hybrid future wasn't such a terrible thing. Arya grew up to become a xenobiologist like her father, studying the ways different species could adapt and integrate at the genetic level. Her research opened new possibilities for cross-species partnerships, making what Zayla and I had done accessible to others. Within a generation, there were hundreds of human Caelrian families. Within 2 generations, thousands. The line between our species blurred and softened until the question of who was human and who was Caelrian became largely irrelevant. We were all just people, learning to exist in quantum superposition between possibilities. I'm old now, my body failing in the way human bodies do. Zayla has aged too, her quantum fluctuations becoming more erratic, her ability to maintain coherent form degrading. But our bond remains strong, stronger than ever after decades of shared consciousness. We are back on New Harmony, in the same apartment where we built our life together. Arya visits regularly with her own children, 4th-generation hybrids who can shift between quantum states with effortless ease. They're so far beyond what Zayla and I struggled to create, so perfectly balanced between species that they make our awkward first attempts look primitive. They're beautiful. They're the future we dreamed of. "Do you regret it?" Zayla asks me one evening, her form flickering with fatigue. We're sitting on the balcony again, watching the ships come and go. All of it. The treason, the risk, the choice to betray your own species. I think about Admiral Chen's question from decades ago about the boy I was who thought in terms of duty and honor and following orders. I think about the man I became, who learned that sometimes the greatest honor is choosing what's right over what's commanded. I regret the people who died, I say honestly, the ones we couldn't save, the ones who fell before we found the third way. I regret that the war happened at all, that it took so much death before we chose understanding. But the rest? No. I don't regret choosing you. Choosing peace. Choosing to believe that connection was possible even when everyone said it wasn't. We committed treason for love, she says, and there's wonder in her voice even now. We betrayed our peoples for each other. We saved our peoples by betraying the lies they'd built, I correct. There's a difference. She laughs, that same sound that captured my heart in a laboratory so many years ago. Always the idealist. Always the pragmatist, I counter. You knew the mission parameters, knew what you were supposed to do, and you chose differently anyway. I chose you. And I chose you. And together, we chose something neither of us could have built alone. We sit in comfortable silence, our quantum bond humming between us, consciousness overlapping in ways that make the boundaries of self blur and dissolve. This is what we created. Not just peace between species, but genuine integration. The kind that makes war not just unthinkable but impossible, because you can't kill someone you're quantum entangled with. You can't hate someone whose thoughts you share. It's not perfect. Nothing ever is. There are still conflicts, still misunderstandings, still moments when cultural differences create friction, but they're managed through communication now, through the quantum protocols we developed, through the simple fact that both species can feel each other's truth. The war ended 30 years ago. The woman I betrayed everything for sits beside me, her hand in mine, our consciousness so thoroughly entangled that I can't remember what it felt like to be alone in my own head. Our daughter carries our legacy forward, building new bridges we never imagined. Our grandchildren exist in states of quantum superposition, so natural they don't even think about it. This is what treason bought us. This is what love created. And I would do it all again without hesitation, because some betrayals are actually acts of loyalty to something larger than nation or species or self. Loyalty to the possibility that we can be better than our worst impulses. That we can choose connection over fear, understanding over violence, love over duty. The stars wheel overhead, the same stars that witnessed our war and our peace, our separation and our integration. They're indifferent to our struggles, our triumphs, our impossible choices. They just shine, constant and eternal. But down here on this small moon built by two species learning to be one, we shine too. With the light of choices freely made, of bridges built across impossible divides, of love that refused to recognize the boundaries others insisted were absolute. I was a xenobiologist who fell in love with an enemy spy. She was a Kalerian operative who chose treason over duty. Together we ended a war and built a peace that grew into something neither of us could have imagined. They call us heroes now, founders of the integration, pioneers of cross-species unity. But we were just two people who chose each other, and in that choice changed everything. The sun sets on New Harmony, dual stars painting the sky in colors that exist only here, only now, only because we built this place together. Zayla's head rests on my shoulder, her form flickering gently with exhaustion and contentment. Our bond hums between us, decades of shared consciousness compressed into a single, endless moment. This is the end of my story, and the beginning of countless others. The war turned because a spy fell in love. Peace grew because a scientist chose treason. And the future blooms because we dared to believe that connection was stronger than division, that love could bridge any distance, that choosing each other over everything else we were supposed to be was not weakness but the greatest strength of all. I close my eyes, feeling Zayla's consciousness intertwined with mine, feeling the echoes of our daughter and grandchildren through the quantum bonds we've built, feeling the pulse of two civilizations learning to beat as one. And I know, with absolute certainty, that I made the right choice, even if it was treason, especially because it was treason. Some betrayals save the world.